Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformations. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Life Transformation Radio. I am your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 70 countries, such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, India. So I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here is where we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing. We highlight that transformational moment that has changed our lives and how we use this to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on Blog Talk Radio Network at Tuesday through Friday at noon, between noon and 1, and at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join our Facebook community, Life Transformation Radio Community, and never miss an episode. And you can even talk to the guests after the show. I ask that you subscribe to Life Transformation Radio wherever you're comfortable listening to podcasts. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, the Google Play Music app. Wherever you're comfortable listening to shows, we are there. On the show, we have entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, amazing people who are impacting the world around them. And my guest today does just that. If you have any questions for any of the guests during our live broadcast, you can call us up at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. And with that, please help me welcome to the show my guest for today, Madeleine Black. Hey, Madeleine, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Thank you, Sean. Nice to be with you.
Oh, thank you. So where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from Glasgow in Scotland.
That is amazing. I was there one time. I used to live in England over at RAF Lakenheath, and I spent a couple of years over there and would drive up to Scotland in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Stirling, and all that. And one thing that I noticed was there was a William Wallace monument, and I thought that
there is,
movie,
yes,
you know, like it's just a movie, you know. It doesn't say based on a true story. Like most movies will say based on a true story or whatever. And so I got schooled very quickly that, no, that actually happened, and these battles actually happened, and that's part of history.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought I was I love Scotland's rolling hills and the mountains and all that. I just absolutely love it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country. So with that, let's talk about what you're up to. Let's talk about your brilliance and learn more about you. So the title of the episode is The Global Resilience Project with Madeleine Black. Madeleine is an international speaker, patron for Say Women, storyteller for the Forgiveness Project, author of Unbroken, and a psychotherapist. She has an unusual personal story which she uses to inspire and motivate others. She chose to forgive the two men who gang raped her at 13 years old, and she shares her story for many reasons. She wants to end the shame, the stigma, and silence surrounding sexual violence, enabling others to find their voice, whatever their story is. She wants people to know that it's not what happens to us that is important, but what we do with it. She will show how changing her mindset tapped into her resilience and transformed her life, making people question their own thinking and encouraging them to see that there are always choices to make. And if we choose to, we can get past anything that happens to us in life, both professionally and in our personal life. She wants to encourage others to live their life courageously too, but ultimately she wants to inspire hope and show people that we are all so much stronger than we think we are. In March of 2018, she won the Amazing Strength Award at the #1 magazine Amazing Women Awards, and in October of the same year was asked to be the patron for Say Women, a Scottish organization which offers safe accommodation and support to young women who are survivors of sexual abuse or rape and who are homeless. She is one of 50 thrivers taking part in research by the Global Resilience Project to develop a resilience blueprint for others. She's a storyteller for the Forgiveness Project and has recently become involved with their program, Restore, sharing her story in prisons. You can go to Madeleine Black, MADELEINE Black.co.uk to learn more. I am absolutely impressed. I absolutely love what you are doing, and so
Thank you
resilience
so much.
is a big thing on my heart. I mean, resilience is like, I'm a resilience trainer. Love what you're doing. So the first question I want to ask you is why? What is your deep why for what you do?
Well, I kind of call myself an accidental speaker. I never really intended to be a speaker, but I quickly learned the power that comes when we share our stories, and I really don't share it for me anymore. I share it for what it can do for other people.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell us about that. Like, how did you get started? I think forgiveness is something that people struggle the most with, because it's almost like they think that forgiveness is telling them that it's okay, but really the forgiveness is for you, the person, the victim,
Yeah, I would never, ever forgive the act of rape, and forgiveness actually was never about the 2 young men who did gang rape me. It was for giving me a better chance. It really allowed me just to let go of all of my anger and my hate and my revenge, and it was really my key to freedom because it ultimately brought in peace.
Peace how?
Peace because when I was angry and full of revenge and hate, it wasn't harming them. It was only harming me, my husband, and my kids. And I realized that they'd have no idea that I was holding on to all this anger. And I didn't want to live my life from a really hateful, angry place. I wanted to live it from an alive place. I wanted to be spontaneous, but it was holding me back. It was preventing me from living my life fully.
Got it. No, I can totally see that. Sometimes when we don't forgive people, you hold a grudge, and then that grudge starts to fester. And like you said, it's not that they're even caring that you're hurting. You're not hurting them. They're not sitting there going, "Oh man, she's got a grudge against me. That sucks." It's only hurting you. So I think forgiveness is very, very key into living a happy and healthy life. So talk about those moments that the stigma, the silence surrounding sexual violence, the shame that people who are victim of sexual violence, and the shame that other people may have. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, the shame is really weird because it's a crime committed against us, but I think it's because it's such an intimate crime that it really just taps into not just our body, but our mind and our psyche. And for years, I used to think that if people knew what had happened to me, that they would look at me how I saw myself. And for years, I just thought I was worthless and dirty and contaminated. And I thought if people knew, they would change their mind and they wouldn't want to know me. So I tried to keep this secret for years. But I can remember I was speaking once at a university in London, and I heard a trauma specialist speaking after me, and one sentence that she said really stuck out, and she said the pressure of keeping our shameful secrets is constantly like holding a beach ball under the water. So when I decided to share my story, I thought it's really time just to let my beach ball go. I was tired of holding on and being ashamed because, the shame never belonged to me. I held on to inappropriate shame for years. The shame always belongs to the perpetrators.
I 100% agree. And I like that analogy, a beach ball underneath the water. Yeah, definitely, because there's so much pressure in holding it down that
Yeah.
sometimes you get tired and it releases in a violent way.
Yeah.
So have you ever experienced the traumas, the nightmares, the things that they talk about when someone has experienced that?
Oh, it affected my life in so many ways. When it first happened, I couldn't speak about it. They threatened me and said that if I spoke about it, they would kill me. And after some of the things they had done to me, I believed them. So I developed anorexia. I used drugs and alcohol to numb out. I had so many fears, phobias, anxieties. I was suicidal. I attempted suicide just before my 14th birthday. I had 2 months in a children's psychiatric ward. Yeah, I was not in a good place for years.
Wow. That's got to be tough. And you're doing this pretty much like on your own, right? I mean, you're not telling a bunch of people, and you're dealing with things that you're not telling your parents. You're not, right?
I didn't tell my parents to start with, and when I finally found my voice, I was about 16, and there was another girl involved, and she said that it hadn't happened like I said it had, and so I just felt so betrayed in that moment. And my mum was also very quiet, and I misunderstood her silence for years. I thought, well, my friend doesn't believe me, and my friends betrayed me, and my mum doesn't believe me. So that really affected me for a long time.
Yeah, that must be tough. I can't even imagine what that feels like. But I'm also well aware that there are some people listening right now that might be feeling the same way that you're feeling. So what is your message for them? The ones that are listening right now who may have had a similar experience, what is your message for them?
Yeah, I would say to me, I have done so many different types of therapies, body therapies, talking therapies. I would say that the single most thing that ever helped me out of everything was just simply finding my voice, giving it oxygen, not leaving it trapped inside, because as you said, it festers. And when you give it oxygen, you're not just releasing the story, but you can slowly work the shame, which doesn't belong to you, and all the energy that gets trapped with it as well. And it just occupied so much space inside of me that when I released it, there's more of me now that can come back, and plus more than before this happened to me. So if anybody's listening, I would say it's never too late to find your voice. It doesn't have to be a therapist. Find somebody that you can trust, but share your story. Don't go to your grave with a shameful secret that you think is shameful. And if you can't find somebody to share it with, tell yourself your story, because we minimize it and we deny it and we shut it down for years. But we know the truth, really. It's not that we forget it, we just don't want to remember it.
Got it. So being a psychotherapist, was that a result of your trauma, or did you always want to be a psychotherapist?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that, and it wasn't really. I have had two great teachers. I've been very lucky. Both of my parents are amazing survivors. My mum had her neck broken in an operation and was bedridden for a few years until she fought back. And my father was a Holocaust survivor, and he lost both his parents, his brothers and sisters. His youngest brother was only 6. They all were gassed in Auschwitz. And my aunt, his sister survived, and she was so affected. And I was always intrigued by how two people can have a similar experience and come out so differently. And that just always intrigued me, and I wanted to understand it more. And I see that with clients, say, for example, 2 clients have lost their father. One can just be so sad, and one can just be so grateful that was the father that they had. So I was always interested in why do we respond the way that we respond, and also looking at, like you, resilience, that I do strongly believe it's not really what happens to us that is important. It's what we do with what happens that really matters.
Oh, 100%. I always tell people that God never wastes pain. And the reason that you're going through this is because you need to use it to get to that next level, right?
Yeah.
What you need to do
it's hard
is
to believe
take
it when
what's
you're
happening
in it.
for you. Oh, 100%. Oh, you're 100% right. But you take what is coming for you, because, everybody's life happens for you, not to you, or, whatever. But what I say is that God never wastes pain. And so if you're experiencing something, then make meaning of it. and take that meaning through whatever the adversity that you're going to overcome, and now you have a powerful testimony.
Yeah, but it's easier to see that on this side. I have to say that I didn't get here overnight. It's been a process, and it's taken years and years and years to get to clean up this trauma. The impact was huge on my life, but it's taken me a long time. So things are always clearer when you're out of it, but when you're in it, it's hard to see the good in your pain because it's painful. It's a physical feeling as well as an emotional feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. I do
100%.
believe what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a very valid point. I didn't overcome my suicide stuff. I didn't overcome my demons and everything that I was dealing with, overnight. It was months and months and months of, and therapy that I needed and things that I needed to get over and childhood trauma. And so, I always tell everybody that, everybody's not an overnight success. 10 years in the making sometimes. I've had guests on the show that says I'm a 10-year overnight success. I've been working for 10 years.
It took me 35 years to share my story publicly.
Really? 35 years?
Yeah, a long time.
Wow. So did you share it in the book that you wrote called Unbroken?
No, I first shared it with an organization in London called the Forgiveness Project, which was about 4.5 years ago. And then the idea of writing a book just came to me after I heard another one of their speakers talk. The founder of the organization, Marina Cantacuzino, she doesn't call us storytellers, she calls us story healers. And when I heard this woman speak, it was at an event in Glasgow, I just got it. I saw exactly what she meant. The effect she had on the room was just incredible. You could feel it. It was just so healing. And I thought I could write my story. I don't know where it came from. And the moment I had that thought, it was like the book just downloaded inside me, and I literally vomited all the words out in about 8 weeks. It was written, and it's 2 years old tomorrow, so it's been out for a couple of years now.
So talk about the plot. Talk about, what it felt like to write that book and where the readers can pick it up.
Yeah, well, some parts were easier to write than others, I have to be honest. And interestingly, before I got published, my editors, they weren't sure about putting in all the details. My friend was my editor, and he said I had to put the details in, and I said, no, I don't think so. I'm too ashamed. I don't want people to know what they did to me. And I saw that it was still, my shame was still coming up even after all these years. And then when I got my contract with my publishers, they said, I don't think you should put the details in. And then at that point, I was so definite. I said, no, the details have to go in. If I'm going to share my story, I don't want to sanitize it and make it easier for people to digest, because then we just dilute it, and then we're hiding from the truth again. If I'm going to tell my story, I'm going to say it exactly how it was. So there is a chapter that is quite hard to read. It was very violent what was done to me, but I felt it was really important. So my book, Unbroken, is my memoir. It tells my story of being gang raped when I was a teenager, and it really follows my journey of surviving, healing, forgiveness, transformation, and hope.
I love that. And I'm sure that many lives have been changed, because you write so deeply about something that deeply affected you. And those stories and those, the memoirs and the books and, all that tend to be pushed a lot farther when it's an emotional, powerful story that has happened to somebody, because you're not the only one. I fully believe that you are not the only one, right?
I know my story is not uncommon. It's the story of many men and women, and every day I get messages from readers or people that have heard me speak, and they share their stories, and that's why I do it. Someone the other day said, listening to me, they've decided now to go to the doctor to go and get some support, or someone else told me a very similar story to mine after they had heard me speak last week. So every day I get messages, and that just really motivates me even more to speak out.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Oh, 100%. And so what can you tell me some type of stories that people have the messages that come in of empowerment, of transformation. People hear your story, and what do they typically say?
Yeah, I'll give you an example of a woman that I think of every time I speak after I found out about her story. So I was interviewed by a very famous presenter, broadcaster in the UK, Sir Trevor MacDonald, which was amazing. And afterwards, my friend got in contact to say her mum had been listening. And to cut a very long story short, she told her daughter that day that she had also been raped when she was a teenager like me. And she ended 64 years of her silence, all because she heard me on the radio and she connected with a woman who understood. I made her, through that radio interview, realize it was never her fault. She was never to blame. 100% of all rapes are caused by rapists. And she was able to share that with her daughter, and she had never, ever told anyone before. So every time I speak, I think of her and all the other men and women out there that just can't speak, just can't find their voice.
Amazing. And that's why I love being a speaker, is because somebody will come up to the stage or somebody will meet me in the back of the room and say, I resonated with that, or something you said really triggered this in me, and, I'm going to be empowered to do this, or I'm going to, whatever. That's what I love the most, is when somebody comes up to you and just becomes super vulnerable and becomes empowered to share their story, because everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. Everybody does.
Yeah, we have no idea when we stand up there and share our story where it's going to go and who it's going to reach, the ripple effects.
Oh, 100%. Oh, absolutely. You don't know that person who was in your audience goes home and then has that difficult conversation with their spouse or their kids or with a family member, or they forgave somebody that moment. In the crowd that moment, they forgave somebody. And it feels like a weight has been lifted off of them, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So talk about your transformational moment. So you went through that horrific experience, and I believe there's a transformational moment that happens either because of that or when you actually broke your silence. So talk about a transformational moment that changed your life.
It was many years later. I mean, there were a few transformational moments, but I guess really the forgiveness was the main one. So when my eldest daughter turned 13, all of my memories returned. I was also studying psychotherapy at that point and doing tons of personal development. But when Anna became 13, they just came flooding back in. And at first I thought that I was going crazy. I thought if it was so bad, I would remember it. Now I understand. My mind shut it off, and it came back when it thought I was ready to face it, even if I didn't agree with it. So I went back to therapy, which lasted about 3 years. And very near to the end, he suggested to me that, maybe these 2 young men weren't born rapists. And I was so angry with him. I couldn't believe what he was saying. But, he planted a seed or a thought in my head, and it started to grow. And I just found myself wanting to understand, because they weren't much older than me, maybe 17 or 18, these guys. How could they know to be so violent towards another human being? What had they seen or heard or experienced to make them behave that way that day? And the forgiveness really surprised me, because I started to feel compassion in my heart towards them, because I thought, I've lived my life as best as I could, refusing to be identified by what had happened, but they have to live with what they did to another human being. And I don't think that can be easy. So I saw there was this deep realization that in order for me to make peace with my past, I will need to forgive them. And that's what I chose to do. But I thought if I can choose to respond how I chose to, we can all respond. We can all make a choice of how we respond to anything in life.
Oh, yeah. And by living the example, right? By being the example of a horrific experience that you've eventually, and it wasn't like you walked up to him and go, hey, I forgive you. Like, you had to do it inside yourself.
I didn't need them standing in front of me. It was a decision I could make within my heart in private to myself.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. So what would you tell someone who needs to forgive but is holding that grudge, how do they start the forgiveness process?
You know what? I would never tell anyone they have to forgive in order to heal. It's a real personal choice, and that's not what my message is about. If that's something they choose to do, then they have to work on it. But it's good to watch the struggles. It's good to watch what your resistance is. Why are you holding back if that's what you want to do? I could never, ever forgive the act of rape because it was a total violation. But I could forgive them for being human, their humanity.
Got it. Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. Like, I never, any of that stuff, yeah, I mean, the act, right? But you're forgiving the people, and it's really about letting go. When I think of forgiveness, it's about, you know what? I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm done carrying this.
Absolutely.
Because you almost feel guilty, right? Like, you almost feel guilty, that this
well,
happened.
It really was an act of self-love. I had to forgive myself for being a naive 13-year-old who went on a night out that went horribly wrong, and it was self-empowering. It was really for me. It was for giving me a better chance. It was nothing to do with them, because I didn't want to stay bitter and twisted till the end of my days. I wanted to live my life from a really alive place, and it was holding me back.
Yep. No, 100%. I agree with that. Yeah. So moving forward, talk about the Forgiveness Project, talk about the Global Resilience Project, like the things that you're involved in. How'd you get started with those?
Well, through the powers of social media, like everything in this day and age, the Forgiveness Project is where I first shared my story in September 2014, and just a few months after that, then I was in a book of theirs, one of 40 stories, and I just saw all the messages that I was getting, and just recently, last year, I went with them to a prison in England, and we did a week's work. They have a program which is called Restore, and they work with male and female prisoners, and it just blew me away. The work that they did there with the women, I was on the women's course, was just so intense, but so incredible, to help them journey back into themselves, to connect back into them. And one of the women said to me, this was the most important course she's ever done in her life. And you think, wow, it's incredible. And then the Global Resilience Project is slightly different. So the Forgiveness Project collects stories of forgiveness, but the Global Resilience Project is run by a woman called Emma Bell, and she's interested in resilience, which, as the name suggests, and she has collected 50 different stories of people that have overcome adversity, all different stories from around the world. And she wants to study us, to research, to find out our blueprint. And I think she's come up with 9 different personality traits that we all have. We don't all do the same thing, but we all do some of them, which has led us to our resilience. And she wants to use this blueprint with mental health, with businesses, to touch as many lives as possible. So it's another amazing organization to be involved with.
I love that. And it's great that these organizations are in place, because there are people hurting, there are people that are struggling, and there are people that need to know that there is another path that they can take, and they don't have to go through the normal routes that most of us take, the alcohol and the drugs and the suicide, and that downward spiral that inevitably that you're going to feel after a trauma. So it's great that these are in place, and I love that.
Sometimes you have to go through all of that, though. You have to see the dark before you can see the light. It's part of the process as well. As long as you don't stay there, that's the trick. As long as you get out from there.
Right.
But I think you have to get really low before you can get back up sometimes. The trauma has to go somewhere. If we can't speak about it, it's going to leak out of us.
Yeah, and that's why I always say, God never wastes pain. It's here for me. So if you wouldn't, so if that wouldn't have happened to you, then you probably wouldn't be in these organizations. If the things that happened to me did not happen to me, then I wouldn't be a speaker and an advocate and a suicide awareness trainer, and I wouldn't be in resilience because I wouldn't have a resilient story. You have a resilient
story.
Absolutely.
I would never ever wish it on anybody else what happened to me, but I wouldn't undo it now, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I always tell people, I would never take back anything that's happened, because it's made me who I am. I can't imagine
it's a paradox.
doing anything else.
Yeah, it's a paradox because
Right.
it has made me who I am, and yet I'm not that. I'm far more than a woman that's been raped. I'm not my body. I'm not the things that were done to it. You know, I'm more than that, and yet it has shaped me. You know, so it's a real paradox for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So let's do this. Let's do a shameless plug. You can plug your friends' quotes, websites, Facebook, your, where to buy your book, all of that. How can they get in touch with you? Shameless plug moment. Go.
Sure. Well, my book is called Unbroken, my memoir, and it's available on Amazon. Or if you go to my website, madelineblack.co.uk, you'll be able to see all the other places where I am. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, all over the place.
I love it.
Sorry, my doorbell's just gone, and my dog's now appearing on your show.
As we start to close the show, what is your message for everyone listening right now? What is your message for them? What do you want them to know and to do?
I want people to know that we are all so much stronger than we think we are, that we can really, all of us, convert our pain into something better. And by finding your voice, you speak the things that you think are unspeakable, and you stand in your power, you stand in your truth, so you can heal the past, you can live for today, and you can dream your future.
Ooh, I love that. So you can dream your future. I absolutely love that. Well, I want to thank you so much for being an amazing guest on our show. I think that, for what it's worth, all of the things that you've endured and all the things that you've overcome, I think that you're on a great mission to end the shame, end the stigma, and end the silence surrounding the sexual violence that takes place in people's lives. Someone listening to this, my hope is that they gain hope, that they gain a sense of empowerment and start that forgiveness process. Because if not, they're going to be bogged down by the things that they carry, like especially the feelings. The feelings that they carry can be so overwhelming. And you carry all that hatred, you carry that hurt, and you carry that pain.
And again,
a great way to live.
I'm not here to preach forgiveness. I don't think in order to heal you need to forgive. This was my journey, but you can get support. You can learn to really find a way to just accept all that was done to you, knowing that you can't change it in any way, and you can learn to let it go, whatever that looks for you. Maybe it's forgiveness, maybe it's not.
Right. I think that, and you make a good point. I'm not here to preach the forgiveness. You're just telling your story and all that.
Yeah.
I think that, they know. Right? Inside and out, like they know. If I harbor this, and they got people in their ear all the time, but sometimes you just got to let them simmer in their stew, right? Sometimes you got to leave them alone and just let them deal with what they're going to do. It's emotional intelligence. Someone's emotional intelligence, like if I see someone suffering, my emotional intelligence is going to kick in and say, I need to be there. Silently, loudly, whatever.
But I do think there's many roads to the same path. My book is not a self-help guide. This is how I did it. But hopefully it will inspire people to maybe try different therapies, different techniques, different ways, and find their own journey. There will be a journey and a path for everyone on their healing road.
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree. And I just want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story with us, the listeners, myself, and everyone who will eventually hear your story. I just want to thank you for being vulnerable and lighting a path.
You're very welcome.
So with that, give us a way to reach out to you. Give us a way that they can pick up your book. And yeah.
Sure. Well, they can find my book, as I said before, on Amazon called Unbroken. And you can go to my website, madelineblack.co.uk, or you'll find me on social media.
Awesome. And I want to thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing with us today. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Sean.
So Life Transformation Radio listeners, an amazing guest who is impacting the world around her. If anything resonated with you, please, I ask that you reach out to her. Reach out to her to tell your story. Reach out to her to let her know that you heard her on Life Transformation Radio and that her story has had an impact in your life. If you know someone that has been through a similar trauma, if you know anyone who is struggling, share this episode, show them Madeleine Black's website, get them in touch, and start the process of overcoming. I ask that you subscribe to the show wherever you're comfortable listening to podcasts. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Overcast, CastBox, the Himalaya app. Wherever you're comfortable listening to shows, please subscribe to Life Transformation Radio. As I close, I always say, live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.